My name is Maren Grace Hess. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, but I moved down to Dallas to go to school at SMU. I moved here in 2018 and I've loved it and haven't wanted to leave since. I'm a very naturally happy person. I think I always try to look at the positive side of things. I have a brother and two loving parents that gave me a really great childhood growing up. I consider myself a very active person. I love being outside, I love swimming, I love tanning, I love reading, I love walking and going on walks with friends. I love doing yoga. At SMU, I studied marketing and entrepreneurship. I originally wanted to go into entrepreneurship, but ended up in sports hospitality, which is very fun and exciting. We work mostly with college sports and conferences like the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, SEC, and do everything from football to basketball and baseball and Kentucky Derby and Masters. I've been working at Revel XP for a year and a half. Before I worked at Revel XP, I worked at Restoration Hardware, where I was a hostess. At the time of the accident, I was working at Restoration Hardware. I loved being a hostess. I loved greeting people. I loved talking and being the first face that people see when you walk into the restaurant and getting to say hi. On the night of October 30th, 2022, I was headed home from Restoration Hardware. I had just finished a 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift. I wasn't tired, I was feeling fine, it was a good day, and I had pulled off the highway as I always do, and I was headed straight down Pearl. And I was at the cross light of Pearl and McKinney at a red light, waiting for the light to turn green. And then the light turned green, and as I was proceeding to cross the intersection, the driver opposite of me was taking a left-hand turn and crashed into me violently. And instead of checking to see if I was okay, he fled the scene, and an Uber driver that had just happened to be witnessing this whole thing followed the car and was able to get footage of him on his dash cam, where you can see the driver and the passenger getting out of the vehicle, checking to see if there's damage, and then switching sides before driving away. After the impact, I was terrified. I didn't know what was happening. It just felt like surreal, and I can still hear the crash in my head and that sound of plastic breaking. And I was stunned, and I sat there and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't open my door. I had difficulty opening my door, but I didn't even want to get out of my car. I didn't know if I was okay, and my car was still in the middle of the intersection, and the light was still green, and people were still going. And I just stopped and kind of freaked out internally and didn't know what to do. And I think I called my mom, or I called the 911, but I didn't want to get out of my car. I tried to drive my car to the side of the road, and it wouldn't move. It was stuck in the middle of the road, the intersection in the middle lane. And so I had to kind of shift it into neutral, and with the help of the witnesses at the scene, just kind of slowly creak to the side of the road where I could just sit there with my hazards on and kind of process everything. Yeah, there was definitely a jerking feeling of the car when it crashed, and I felt the impact, and I felt my whole body shift, when you have a blunt force kind of trauma when you're not expecting it. I could feel my body tense up and just kind of go into fight or flight mode, and I was shaking and nervous, and I remember my teeth chattering because it was kind of chilly, but not that chilly, but I was just shaking and didn't know what to do, who to call, or the process and steps to get my car out of the street and out of the way of everybody else. I don't think I realized that I had pain until a day later. I think I was in shock, and when I was talking to the police officer initially, I didn't feel any immediate pain, but I think it was adrenaline, and I didn't really know what was going on, and I couldn't really process anything. I think my body just was in go mode. Like, I was calling the police, calling our insurance, calling a tow truck, calling my mom, calling all these people to make sure everything was done correctly, and I didn't stop and think about how I felt or what felt wrong or kind of take into account my own body in the accident. I was just more so concerned with the crash and the damage to my car. And after the accident, I took off a week of work. I was in a lot of pain, and I had a really hard time getting up to do anything, leaving my bed. I didn't want to even get behind a wheel. I couldn't get behind a wheel because my car was towed and taken away and totaled. But I didn't even want to Uber to work. I gave my shifts to other employees that could cover for me. I think it started with just a mild pain in my neck, and I was just kind of confused. And I'm pretty sure I went to go see a chiropractor after the accident and just double check and make sure all my bones were in the right place. And I've never hurt myself before like I did in this accident. I've never been in any other motor vehicle crashes, and I never felt this pain before this crash. Other than this crash, I've never been in any other motor vehicle accidents. I've never felt pain like how I feel in my neck, and even when I'm just sitting here, I can feel the searing pain that I still felt, and that started because of this accident. I was kind of pushed over to the side, and the witnesses that were kind of walking behind my car, I don't know if I was in the car and just refusing to get out, but they came around to the driver's side and opened the door. They didn't pull me out, but they definitely helped me get out of the car, and I think I was just still shaking, and I didn't even want to leave the car. I just wanted to stay there and figure out what to do. And so I called 911 and then a tow truck, and I waited for the tow truck to arrive and then got in that and drove with the tow truck driver to the scrapyard where my roommate picked me up. And we got back to our apartment around 1, and then officer, I think his name is Officer V, and he met me outside of my apartment at 1, and I gave him an account of what had happened, and he gave me my case number to follow up with the police department. But when I was going to bed that night, I kind of noticed I was sore, a general kind of soreness all over, and I just thought it was from the adrenaline kind of wearing off and the trauma setting in of what had just happened. And when I woke up, I realized that my neck was hurting more than it had the night before, and I thought it would be fine if I just took ibuprofen and rested, and I didn't go to work because I just wanted to stay in bed. So I took the week to kind of just try and recuperate and get back into a mindset and a headspace where I could move on and move forward, but I just was still in pain even a week later. After my accident, I went to Kinetic a few times, and then I went to Premier Clinic, and I didn't feel the care that I got there was enough. So I went to see an orthopedic doctor at Epic Pain and Ortho, and they referred me to Central Medical for therapy. Epic referred me to MRI Centers of Texas to go get MRI imaging done. And after doing that, I found out that I had a couple herniated discs in my neck. So that's what was causing the pain. And they explained to me essentially that my spinal fluid was leaking out of my spinal cord and into my neck area, and that's what was causing me to feel the way that I did. And they recommended doing facet injections. And I'm scared of needles. I've always been scared of needles, so I chose to go under for this procedure. And I had to do this twice, so I had to take 2 days of PTO. At the time, I was preparing for these injections, I was starting my new job at Revel XP, and I just kind of finished my training, and I was getting into the flow of things and kind of managing my own schedule. My office is very strict about us being in office 5 days a week, and they have a company culture where you just show up and you do your job there, and you don't ask for days from home, and you don't complain about being in the office. Like, everybody wants to be there. And I had to ask for PTO not only for the days that I had the actual procedures, but I also had to ask for special accommodations to be working from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays after the procedure in order to go to physical therapy. As I was going to Epic, I was also going to Central Medical Center for physical therapy in addition to the facet injections, which I think helped short term and really decreased my pain at the time. But I would say almost a month later, the pain came back, and it kind of is on a sliding scale between like a 4 and an 8 on a scale from 1 to 10. After the facet injections and going to physical therapy, I felt like the pain had decreased and it was manageable and I could live with it. But I would say almost a month after all of that treatment and all of that help, I would say the pain came back, and it still hurts, and it's still something that I have to deal with every day. For about a year and a half after the accident, I couldn't work out. I haven't been able to do yoga. I don't like doing downward dog because it upsets my neck and my area right here. I have a hard time lifting heavy things like groceries. I try to avoid weightlifting classes or strength training because that really irritates and makes it flare up. I constantly feel like I'm always cracking my neck. My mom noticed it when she visited me recently and told me that it's not normal for my neck to crack as often as it does and be as stiff as it is. I think sometimes even taking out the trash is difficult. Just lifting that and carrying it to our apartment's trash room it's a walk down the hallway, but it hurts. Sometimes long activities like chopping vegetables where I have to like really focus and like be over something with my hand extended hurts, and similarly like when I'm using a computer mouse and my arm is extended, I feel it all the way up into my neck and it flares and just kind of hurts me while I'm doing those things. Because I wasn't able to work out and lift things, I ended up gaining about 30-ish pounds after the facet injections and treatment, and I had to buy a whole new wardrobe. None of my clothes that I had worn before fit. After the accident, I ended up gaining, over the course of a year and a half, nearly 30 pounds, and I had to buy all new clothes. I was just really upset about how I looked and how I felt, and I just wasn't able to do anything about it, which was unfortunate because if it was any other time in my life, I'm a very active person. I'm always outside, always just doing things, going places, hanging out with people, and I feel like I look back on this time in my life and I was just very still and stoic, and it just feels like it really disrupted my everyday flow and who I was as a person. It really destroyed my confidence, and I think it really just impacted me in such a negative manner. I don't know if my friend would say this, but I definitely feel like I've been more irritable. I feel like I react more and I just get more angry at things and more stressed out, and just I feel negative emotions more than positive ones. Before the accident, I always had a way of making everything fun, and I think that one of the things that I've heard my entire life, and just from coaches, teachers, other parents, friends, family, is that I always make boring things fun, or like a random day like extraordinary. And I feel like this past year and a half, almost 2 years now, is just like a very dark, boring kind of part of my life that I just feel like I kind of wasted taking care of myself and trying to get myself back to who I was before the accident. I'm getting back to that person that I was, but it's still just like definitely like before the accident and after the accident, like who I was as a person. Like it really like shook me to my core, and especially the fact that this driver like didn't care to see if I was okay and didn't care and didn't check the car, like just drove away. Like it really hurt me because it really like just, I don't know, it was such a huge moment in my life, and it really like changed the trajectory of like how I feel every day and how I wake up and manage my day. And to this person, it meant nothing to them. Like they couldn't even stop. I'm worried that it'll never get better and that it's gonna be something that I have to deal with every year whenever the pain comes back, and just like I'm gonna have to think about this when I'm planning where I live, or like if I wanna do skydiving or do scuba diving or cross things off my bucket list that I haven't been able to do yet. Like, am I still going to be able to do that, and am I gonna be worried about injuring myself further, or like am I gonna be okay? I definitely felt a lot more fragile after everything in the accident and even after treatment. When I was finally cleared to do workouts again, I started off slow and just started with walking and reintroducing activity into my life. And fast forward to now, I live a healthy lifestyle, but it took a while to get here, and I still am scared to injure myself further when I am working out and being active. I am scared to do yoga classes, and I don't really push myself when I do strength training. I'd like to keep it easy. Even though I'm trying to be healthy and trying to be active and get back to who I was as a person, I feel like the pain still comes back and it still flares up, and I have to be extremely cautious when I do certain activities, or even just when I'm super still. When the pain flares up, like after a long day of work or after a strenuous activity, I would say it flares up to about an 8 out of 10. To make the pain go away, I take ibuprofen or just lay down. I have a special orthopedic neck pillow that really helps, but I have to sleep with that every night. When I don't use that pillow, I definitely notice like very stiff, searing pain when I wake up. I was having trouble with my quality of sleep, and even after the accident, I would have nightmares and like wake up and just be like freaking out. After the accident, my anxiety definitely skyrocketed. It started kind of just to create a monster of its own of just fear and nervousness, and I would say immediately following the accident, I did not want to get behind the wheel of a car. I refused to for a while, and even driving in the passenger seat of other people's cars freaked me out. And Ubering, I just didn't want to be in motorized vehicles. I tried to avoid it as much as possible, which was really difficult with work and then also starting a new job. But I actually had to carpool for like the first couple of months because I just didn't want to drive myself to work every day. But another thing with the anxiety is that it truly like made me a more scared driver, and I am more cautious, but I don't know if it's necessarily more safe because I double check everything, and just I'm always fearful of somebody crashing into me or turning in front of me. It freaks me out, and I still hate driving at night and do everything I can to avoid driving at night because I don't like driving when it's dark out, and I think that 100% came from the accident. So that's kind of where that put in my headspace, I would say. I think probably the most noticeable is just like my demeanor kind of, and like from the pain and from the anxiety, just like I'm very I don't know, like reflective and cautious and not really like like I am a go-getter, but not as much as before. And like I'm a very like type A organized, very like on top of my stuff person. And I feel like I kind of let that go a little bit and just kind of became a little bit of a shell of a person and kind of felt like I was watching just like me go through the day-to-day of my life, and I didn't really feel like I don't know, like I just feel like my goals shifted, or like I didn't really like reach for my goals. I would just say I'm worried about the injury constantly being in my life for the rest of the future, and that changing my goals and like making me unable to achieve them. I know whoever is watching this, it's their job to judge whether or not this has impacted my life, and I think that this, more than anything that I've experienced before, has impacted my life in the most negative, unfortunate way. And every day I wake up and have to deal with this, and it's not something that I'm ever going to like forget or like overcome right now. It feels like I just feel like I'd like for like the person to acknowledge what they did that changed my life or kind of ruined my life or set it on a different trajectory. I would love to erase it. Like I think all the time, like what if I just waited when the light turned green instead of going, or just watched or was more cautious. And it was just so unfortunate that they chose to go through the red, and just like I don't know why they did what they did, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm glad it was my car instead of the two people walking behind my car, but like it was terrifying and just crazy, and so much to deal with, and so much has happened because of that accident to me, and it just shaping kind of who I am as a person now. So yeah, I'd love for the accident to not have ever occurred.